Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about a recent proposal by the Ministry of Women and Child Development in September 2015 about making prenuptial agreements in Indian marriages valid. So as of now, there is no concept of prenuptial contract in any of the laws of marriage in India. So, for example, there is no such provision in Hindu Marriage Act. So, and it will the same will be the case for Special Marriage Act and for the Muslim laws. So we will focus on Hindu marriage laws because usually such changes are done in the Hindu Marriage Act. Almost always, they are proposed in that first. So let's have a look at this news and what are the main points and why is this being proposed as a progressive or as a necessary move forward. So here it says that to shorten this cumbersome legal journey and ensure a happy ending for warring couples. So pretty much this is meant for couples who are having issues, maybe who want to get separated or divorced, and that's one of the reasons why this is being brought into picture. And then it talks about how marriages and prenuptial contracts happen in the West. There is one interesting example that, or maybe a provision. So, for example, you can have provision like which all foreign countries the husband will take his wife out to. It can be part of your prenuptial contract, and who will do the dishes or who will drop the kids to school. So this language is pretty much written from perspective of maybe Western countries because, of course, there are Indians who go abroad on trips, but I don't think that's like a significant percentage that it should form a part of this news. Now let's move forward. So basically, it says there is a consultation slated to happen within 10 days, which will have top lawyers, representatives from national law schools, sociologists, psychologists, and experts in the field. It doesn't mention anybody, like who's an expert in family or marriages or children. So, I believe in this news as we go forward, we will not see anything mentioned about the children apart from, one brief point about who will drop the kids to school. Um, Further, the news says something about women empowerment. So we can expect a proposal from WCD to to have something to do with women empowerment. And it says that judicial delays on account of backlog of cases, as if the delays happen only in cases between couples. Indian judiciary is notorious for cases running for 30, 20, 60 years. So, and in addition to the delaying tactics husbands resort to, which is again a very presumptuous kind of assertion, because delaying tactics can be adopted by I mean any third-rate lawyer also. So it is not uh, something that only husbands will do. And then it says there is a big advantage that neither the husband nor the wife can contest a demand for dissolution of marriage, presumably when one of the conditions in the prenuptial contract has not been adhered to, or basically it's violated by one of the parties. So let us say there is a condition in the contract that the wife, if the bride says, my husband, you should not snore at night, because and if you snore for let's say 2 months continuously, I can dissolve the marriage. So be it. Probably you keep yourself in good shape. I don't know, maybe something like that. Maybe the husbands can demand something, although the way things are, the kind of provisions which are already available to women under Domestic Violence Act, under CRPC 125, under maintenance laws, under Hindu Marriage Act. So basically, already there are provisions for which benefit women, and if this provision is being made for primarily to prevent delays and so-called women empowerment, then uh, it remains to be seen what exactly is the the real need for this, because whenever we see that lawyers or top lawyers, whatever you call them, are involved, the question which we need to ask is, what will all this legality help? Will it help society, or will it help judiciary, or will it reduce the number of backlog of cases? Will it help lawyers? So because a lawyer gets paid, the more the litigation is there. So unless and until there is some provision where somebody gets paid for a happy marriage being there, I really doubt that creation of more laws can really help in solving reducing marital problems. Okay, let's move forward. There is a mention of section 23 and 26 of Contract Act of 1872, which seems to be the hurdle in having prenuptial agreements being made into part of the marriage vows. Because one thing we need to understand is, as per the Hindu Marriage Act, a marriage is considered a sacrament, so it is not considered a contract. In under the Muslim laws, a marriage is considered a contract, and we are not going to discuss that part of the personal laws because it's a different topic altogether. But as per the Hindu Marriage Act, there is marriage is not a contract. So if it is not a contract, then how do you put a prenuptial contract as part of the marriage? So let's have a look at the Indian Contract Act, and I have section 23. So I will just quickly point out, the main provision which might be a hurdle. So any contract which is made, which the court might consider as, as the contract is immoral or it's opposed to public policy, that contract is considered unlawful. So basically, the contract is not valid at all. So as of now, since marriage is not really considered a contractual kind of obligation, easily um, an objection can be raised that any kind of prenuptial contract is not really in line with public policy, because, and some people may even argue that it is immoral. It can increase divorces, it can increase unnecessary litigation, and it can blow up small problems into a divorce kind of issue. So it is possible to stretch the argument, or even make a reasonable argument that if a prenuptial contracts are allowed without changing the laws of Indian Contract Act as well as Hindu Marriage Act, then it may not stand the test of the law in a court. Let's have a look at one interesting case, which some woman has asked a question on Yahoo Answers, and this is an image I copied from my own blog. I'll paste the link in the description in the video below. This is just an example I'm giving. Obviously, this is not a very inspiring or a kind of example, because what the woman is saying here is that she was married and her husband caught her cheating with the husband's own best friend. So with best friends like these, who needs enemies? Anyway, so what does it says is that the judge threw out the prenuptial agreement because the judge thought it was unfair. Now that's interesting. I think people in India may not be aware that even in US, or I think other Western countries, sometimes the prenuptial agreement is overruled, even though there are conditions inside that. So that's how it is. You may consider that you are safe. You have put some conditions. So let's say you said that all my property will be mine, or I'm working on a business and my wife cannot have a part of it, but she may get it, some part of it nevertheless, or the other way around. Maybe the wife may have some condition on the husband. But generally speaking, the way the trend is all over the world these days, most of the time, the if not the laws, the courts, they are considered as code of equity. So more often than not, the decisions will get made somehow to favor the women. Let's look at one of the articles I got by a very quick Google search. So I'm not saying this article is in any way some kind of very authoritative article. So it's on one of the law websites, and it gives a reason. It gives top 10 reasons why a premarital agreement or a contract may be considered invalid when it gets when the case goes to court. So I will quickly go through this. So basically, it has to be in writing. So I think that makes sense. No written agreement. Verbal agreements are not worth the paper they are written on, as the saying goes, and not properly executed. So a technical point, you have to have it, whatever stamped, registered. I think whatever the law will evolve on that. This is interesting. Now you were pressured, and this is something I'm not 100% sure whether it's very common, but I have anecdotal evidence, or on some of the website, that somebody said that, let's say a wife has signed the agreement, and then on the same date she took a picture. She hurt her arm, and with a bruise, and she took a picture with a date. And when the prenuptial goes to the court, she will say, Your Honor, on that date, I was beaten by my husband, I mean, to be husband, and this is that bruise mark, and I was pressured to sign this. So if those kind of things are allowed, and the prenuptial is thrown out, God knows what will be the validity of these kind of agreements. Point number four and number five, that's like, I mean, it's like, okay, you wrote it, you got it signed. Maybe you had a couple of witnesses, you had your lawyer, you had your spouse's, to-be spouse's lawyer. And then, if it can be thrown out on such flimsy grounds, I didn't read it, or I didn't get enough time. So I don't know how the court will decide on, such kind of things. But the way these things are written, 99 out of 100, the benefit of doubt or the benefit will go to the woman. So if there are any men out there who are thinking, okay, I want to get married, maybe it's your first marriage, or maybe second marriage, or whatever, if this law comes into force, I will have a very watertight agreement, and it will help me in future. I can be, safe. I can focus on my work, my business, whatever it might be. If these kind of things are happen in India, and why can't they happen? If because yeah, litigation is the same everywhere. So if these kind of things happen in India, then your prenuptial contract might go under litigation, and you might have to settle for something much much worse than the conditions which were there originally. So let's go to point number six, which is quite valid. If there are some invalid provisions which violate the law, so even the Indian Contract Act doesn't allow you to have provisions, which are illegal. So obviously, those kind of things cannot be there. False information, well, that's very interesting, because if, or let's say the point number eight, false information or incomplete information. Now, the problem with these is that if there is a information which is not, maybe not very crucial, or maybe it is incomplete. Let us say somebody says, I'm earning, X amount of money, and a challenge is thrown later on that he was earning, this much. This was the gross salary. This was the, salary after deduction. What's the real salary? I didn't know before marriage. So information was incomplete. I was duped. The prenuptial is invalid. So, I mean, I can't begin to, think whether prenuptial will decrease litigation or it will increase litigation, because, unless and until this information is vetted by some independent third party who kind of, signs and stamps that, the height of the groom is 176 centimeter, the wife, the to be bride, she doesn't wear contact lenses, maybe if that's a condition of, the bridegroom. So unless and until you have, independent verification by an independent third parties, these kind of things can always get challenged, and there will be a lot of litigation. And no independent counsel, again, it's a very, technical step, so I will not go into detail. And then unconscionability, which is pretty much if one of the spouses agrees to something which is kind of very, I mean, which any reasonable person will not agree to. If that is something which is done, then the court might rule that this condition is not even maintainable. So, but I think that will be probably something very, very rare. Now, that's about a quick overview of prenuptial, how a prenuptial agreement might get into problems as it is in the West. Now, going back to the news, it's a proposal by Women and Child Development Ministry, and it there is a mention of women empowerment, and there was a brief mention about. I mean, there is no mention about children. So, I think one problem I have with all these proposals is that they mention psychologists, sociologists, and top lawyers, and somehow marriage being one of the institutions with the main aim being having children and good raising of good children with a good kind of values and in a nice home and family setup. There is no mention of what about the children, so which is doesn't give me too much confidence that even though the Ministry of Women and Child Development, somehow the proposal focuses only on women empowerment and how the women get affected because of delays in the courts, as if the men don't get affected by delays. So it doesn't inspire too much confidence. So if you have any comments on this, feel free to put in the comment box below. And if you like this video, please share and do subscribe to the channel. Thank you.